So I created a project, UI for REDcap. This is the version that is the interface of Unity editor is most similar to everyone that is either starting or is a long-term user of Unity. The project is here. The objective is to make it very simple using only native aspects. So I'm going to duplicate this sample scene and call it REDcap survey. Then here, I'm already in the REDcap survey. I'm going to create a UI canvas. I'm gonna change the canvas render mode to screen space camera, because then the camera that we are using, the space of the camera becomes the space of the canvas. I like that because it helps keeping track of stuff. Um, Scale scalar, this is extremely important if you want your project to be responsive, that is, to resize depending on different screen dimensions. You should change it, this UI scale mode, to scale with screen size. Then this reference resolution is going to be found here in the game tab. Most screens, they have 16 by 9 aspect, which is very close to Full HD. So you can either click 16 by 9 or Full HD, and you can see that this blue area doesn't even change. But for instance, if you put free aspect, this is the most not recommended mode for the game view, because it's not gonna have a reference of the end screen. So in this case here, you can see that everything is gonna be blue. So that's not good. And if you have a project for a very high resolution, for example 4K, you can also build everything, especially the UI, the 2D UI, based on that. But we will stay with Full HD 1020 1080, because then we use these values here. X is 1920 and Y is 1080. Screen match mode, match width or weight, so it's either the horizontal or the vertical dimension. And in order to make sure that it's going to be fully responsive, we put in the middle, so 0.5 here. It means 50% is going to be rescaled according to the horizontal side, the width, and 50% is going to be rescaled with the vertical side, the height. So this is the setup for the canvas. An event system is a game object that controls clicks and events and controllers, basic input controllers. So every time you create a canvas or a UI element that is interactable by default, Unity creates an event system for you. You need to have only one event system in the scene. It doesn't matter where. I'm gonna save now just to keep track of that. So in this canvas, I'm going to create a panel. I like to use a panel because then it helps me delineate the space that I'm going to be working with. Here, I was in the game view. I'm sorry. So, all right. So now I'm going to change these numbers to 50, 50, 50, 50, 50. Anyways, inside this panel, I'm going to include uh, Text Mesh Pro. Oh no, I'm not going to include Text Mesh Pro because I want the object to be this project to be very simple. So let me delete this. Sorry. I'm going to include a text object, and then I'll put the prompt of the question. Where is that? The prompt of the question that Dr. Bodzin created was here. The best RMC roller coaster is. So the text disappeared here because currently the text object component is configured to be wrapping the horizontal overflow and truncating the vertical overflow. So you can either adjust the size it of the text component, or if you want, you can always change this overflows to overflow and overflow, and it doesn't matter. It's always going to be uh, going across the limit. So the downside of using Unity's main original text uh, objects, it's because it's old and they did do a good job. So you can see that the quality is terrible. Something that I learned many years ago when I started studying Unity, and even when before Text Mesh Pro existed. So it's for us to change the scale from 1 to zero point 0.5 in the X and in the Y, and then you can increase the size of the font. I'm gonna make the color be black, so then it reads better than if it was 1 and 1. I don't know if that makes any changes, but it doesn't seem to. So let's leave it at 1 and 1. Again, I want to make this very simple. So this is question 1. And from what I remember in the original project in REDcap, it's a drop-down variable. So I'm going to click the panel and I'm going to add UI drop-down. I'm going to position this drop-down right next to the prompt. And I'm going to add the options here. Let me open the other so I can type. Steel, vengeance, vengeance, lightning, rod, iron, Wazzy. I'm gonna add more options. Wildcat's Revenge, Iron Iron Rattler. You can see that the first option of the list has value 0. So if you don't want the first answer to be appearing here, you should create another item in the options and write like click to here to choose your answer. All right, let's test. So the drop down is working. Now let's see the second type of question that Dr. Bodzin created. Matrix for Likert scale items. So what is the, okay, here. We need to create a Likert scale. What is the prompt? The following qualities are important in my supervisor. So In order to start, I'm gonna duplicate the text object here so I don't have to lose time. And I'm gonna change here number 2. The following qualities are important in my supervisor. Is this the prompt? Yes, it's the column. Column. So this is text for the drop down item, and this is the text for the Likert scale item. I'm going to create a UI toggle. Again, I'm gonna edit the text because it's using Unity um, basic text component. So I want black. The size of the font should be bigger. I can, instead of like losing the text, I can edit the horizontal overflow to be overflow like this so it shows. And I'm gonna also increase the size of the check mark. Mm, I don't like this. I want to be the size I want. So I'm changing the numbers to be somewhat round numbers because it makes our lives easier. The check mark, because the check mark is a child of the background, can you see that the bounding box blue circles are inside the background? I'm going to change the rect transform to stretch. I'll hold shift and alt and click. So it stretches the size, the rect transform of the child to the size of the rect transform of the parent, which in the case is the background. And this is the text. I don't know what this is, this white thing here. It's the toggle pivot, I guess. Oh, all right. So let's take care of this toggle parent here. The width is gonna be 200 and the height is gonna be 45. Now the background, I want the background to be to the right. So because I know that the parent toggle has this white space here, I can now use this rect transform element to adapt and set up the UI faster and more automatically. So I'll click and I want to have the UI attached to this left side in the middle. So this is this one. I'll click, but if you hold shift and alt, you also set the pivot and the position. That I always do that, it's better. After a while that you do lots of UIs, you see the difference between and the affordances of doing this or not. It's all about trial and error. You will see. Now check mark is here and the label. I want the label to be touching like this. So now I can further, maybe if I put some space here like this. Ta-da! All right, so before I even added content, I took the time to set up the object. Why is that? Because I can duplicate that very quickly. And if I did something, put all the information before, I would have to do the work all over again. So I'm happy with this size. So uh, if I want, I can even make a prefab. So let's do the prefab. It's recommended that a organized project has some basic folders, for example, a folder for scenes, a folder for prefabs, a folder for scripts. So let's do this well, right? When you make a prefab, the object becomes blue because it means that this object, game object that is blue in the REDcap survey hierarchy, it's an instance of the original prefab in the prefab folder. So I can delete prefabs here in the hierarchy because I'm not going to be deleting the copy. And I can move and add as many as I want. Let me, where is that? Scale 100. There's something very wrong here. Here. So I can move as many as I want. But that's the very important thing. Do not delete prefabs in the folder, in the assets folder. Because if you do delete in the asset folder, the blue color becomes red because it lost the reference of the original. And then it says missing prefab. I'm going to show this just for the learning opportunity. But before that, I'm going to unpack the prefab, which means like I'm going to break the connection, like here. I'm going to break the connection of this object toggle to the original prefab. So prefab, unpack or unpack completely. So it becomes an object of its own again. But this one here, toggle one, it's still an instance of the original toggle prefab. And if I delete by accident a prefab, look what happens. It gets red because it's missing. It doesn't have the original file to copy from, right? So that's why it's very important to not delete prefabs without knowing what you're doing. All right, so I'm gonna make 5 because we have 5 points. Uh, I'm selecting all 4 and I'm gonna be moving the X to the right here. Now I'm gonna select the 3 last ones because they are all over one top of the other because I duplicated the original one. Move here, and the last 2 move here, and the last one I'll move here. So I don't like the fact that the toggle is the same font size and type of the prompt. So I either can change the toggle text or I can improve my prompt. I'm going to improve my prompt because it's easier. So I'll select them both and make them bold. But I also would like to make this text a little smaller because I know that the answers for each of one of these are going to be quite long. So I can either open here, 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 one by one, or I can use a trick. I hold shift and I select the first and the last one, and then I can open. No, not with the mouse. I can open with the arrow to the right. So I open all of them. And if it's still selected, right, the parents, and if I want to close them again, I press the arrow to the left. Arrow to the right, arrow to the left. This is very fast and helpful when we are editing something in projects. For example, here, uh, I have to add the labels. But I just realized that I'm working with a prefab. So instead of doing this manually here, I can totally go to the prefab and click it twice. So I'm going to open that original object and I'll click the label and I'll change this font size to 24. And then here on the scene view where you are working, you can either save manually or click autosave. It's usually by default autosave, so you gotta be aware. because sometimes you make a change in the prefab and you close the prefab mode and everything in the project is going to change. So you got to know what you're doing. I'm going to save here because I know that's what I want. By saving this, all the prefabs have received this change of changing the size of the font. Okay, something now that we have to do is that like all these toggles are checked. We don't want that. So we need to select all of them, and I'm going to click with the right button and create an empty parent to hold all these toggles. So I'm gonna name Likert scale toggles. And then all these toggles they leave um, there. This is bad. Anyways, what I want to do now in the Likert scale toggles is to add a component called toggle group. And then it has this allow switch off because if you click it, it allows for you to have all the answers turned off. Sometimes that's the case, right? So I can turn off all the answers. I don't think this is my case, but anyways, in each toggle, I need also to um, make sure that I tell the toggle that I have a toggle group component in the parent controlling them. So you can see here, group, none, toggle group. So I'm gonna drag the parent that has a toggle group, and you can see that it has a blue line because I made a local change in a prefab. Let me see if this change is something that we can apply to the prefab. So apply to prefab toggle. So it says a reference to an object in the scene cannot be applied to prefab assets. Why is that? Because the change I'm making in the toggle level depends on an object that is outside the level of the toggle. That is, the toggle itself doesn't have that parent, uh, so that I cannot apply that change so that all the toggles have. So this is one of the things that we have to do manually. And you can do that by selecting all of them, and then you drag only the object you want to the group, and there you go. What can we do now? We can determine if one of them are going to be marked or not with the is on. In fact, all of them should be off. And why is it not updating? Ah, okay. This is weird. Beyond, oh, is on. Okay, off. All of them are, the last one is on. Is on, off. This is on is something that is controlled in the toggle level. So if I come to the prefab, I can change this and save, and it's going to be applied to all the prefabs. See? All the prefabs start. I think it's checking one because I don't have the allow switch off on. So that's fine. But that's weird as well at the same time. This is something that Unity should fix. I already changed the is on to be unchecked in the toggle original prefab. And then when I come back here, it's still telling me that I made this change locally, which is not the case. Anyways, let me see if I put allow switch off, I'll be able to have everything off. Ta-da! See? The toggle group component, this only option here allows us to turn all of them off, because a toggle by default people understand that if you are offering options, one of them will always be selected. But in Likert scales, we usually have them empty, and then the person checks the box, right? All right, this is, I'm gonna save because I've done a lot. Now the labels. So, hmm, I have 5 items. So I'm gonna work with the, okay, this is a little more complex than a simple Likert toggle. But it's because we are nesting 5 Likert items into only one question. So, which is not gonna be the case, I guess, for us. Anyways, let's see what happens. By the way, this is something new. I just learned, Dr. Bodzi and I just learned from Nathan that there wouldn't be any difference in using a matrix where as opposed to using a normal add field. Maybe I should consider this one here, then an add field. I'm gonna do that. All right, so let's do that. That was a good idea. So this is a simple question for the data collection in REDcap, in which it's kind of it's a Likert scale structure. I have 5 points, but I can also make a multiple choice question. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the answer here. Believable. I don't remember the others. Approachable. Approachable. Appro. Approachable. Toggle. Honest. Successful. And qualified. All right. So we can see that after we enter the answers, like the organization of the toggle objects are not very interesting, right? So Unity has something that is very useful, but it requires a lot of attention, which is called vertical or horizontal layout elements, something like that. For example, I have a parent here that is holding all these objects, right? The Likert scale toggle. If I add a horizontal layout element component, it will organize and put padding in between or whatever automatically. So let's do that. So this is going to be a horizontal layout group. So I said that it's kind of tricky, so you can see that it already changed. So why is that? Because the parent will control where the children will be and how far from one another and stuff like that. All right. So I'm here preparing the space I want to use. You can see that as I stretch, like it's already moving all together, right? And then I can control whether the child alignment is going to be upper left, which is here upper left, or middle center, or lower left. And if I open this a little bit more, you can see the difference. So currently all the children objects here are automatically being like lower left. I can put middle center, for example, all in the center in the middle, or I can put upper left. So this is something to have in mind. I like middle center. So, and then here I can see like, oh, that's okay. And that's about it I'm gonna do for horizontal layout group. I'm gonna show the vertical just for the sake of this video, but I'm not gonna go through the other elements here. You can also have padding around each child if you want, and you can also determine whether the child will force the parent to expand and stuff like that. This is a critical component that I used for the expandable text box container that we have used since Watershed Explorers for the journal entries, for the credits panel. So uh, the horizontal layout group is what allows us to be inserting more blocks of information that auto adjusts without us having to micromanage all these variables. So what happened if I turned it off? Dun-dun, nothing. But what happened if I added a vertical one? I can't because Unit says, you already have one of these. So let me delete the horizontal, remove the component. I'm going to add the vertical. And now Unity automatically organize the items vertically if that's the case for your instrument, right? And again, it's very handy to be able to move everything together and to have them separated and stuff. Uh, I can even show you here spacing 0, but if I increase, it's the spacing between the items, right? Uh, and the spacing of the padding here is around the parent uh, rect transform. For example, I'm gonna have some padding, like some spacing from the left side, 5. See, 15. So that's nice. If you want to make sure that your text or your UI element is going to be in a safe zone inside the parent transform, which is usually this line with the circles, the blue circles, you can put 15 all around. So it's nice. But I don't want vertical layout group. I want horizontal to mimic Likert scale, middle center. All right, save. So in this panel now, I'm going to create the new and the last example, which is the matrix. And I am going to follow exact the what REDcap shows us. So there is a text which is optional because sometimes you in a matrix of Likert scales you don't need to be putting different headers. But in this case we need because it's the first one. So I'll duplicate the text object. I'll move it down. Change the number to 3. Matrix red cap item. Likert scale. Likert scale. Actually, this is the description, not the. Okay, I'm gonna change this. Let's put the. Oh, but if we have the prompt on the top, right? So you could see like you could write your prompt here. Since we are doing UI tutorial and we are using a basic text component, I'm gonna show one more element, especially for people who have studied the HTML or other web programming language or meta tags, for instance, you can have a little control over formatting if you know tags. And in Unity, this is controlled by this option here, rich text. So use emoticons and colors. If it's true, you can. If it's false, you cannot. So what I want to do, I want to make this comment. You could write your prompt here in italics. So I'm going to come to the text box. I'm going to open the tag I, and I'm going to close the tag I, and then it applies the effect I want. Uh, REDcap. Let's write REDcap in red. So color equals red. I don't know if the syntax is like that, but let's try. Close the tag color. Dun-dun! Right? Okay. And Likert scale, it's the type of question. So I'm going to make it bold. Open the tag B. Oops. Close the tag B. And then Likert scale should be bold. Oh, it's already bold. So I'm going to remove the overall bold here and put normal so you can see the difference. And I'm going to call the attention that the matrix is the type of question from red tag. So I'm going to put underline. Ooh, it's not like that. What is the tag for underline? Mm, it should be you. Oh, look at that. The style from the original text doesn't have underline, so that's why. Um, so okay, that's bad. I'm not going to be going through these details because this is already old. But it has transferable skills, like using these tags can also apply to Text Mesh Pro and other similar things. Oh, I think I also can make bold the number 3 to be. All right. So this is a matrix. Okay, this is the label. Uh, Text. I'm going to label this as matrix header. Now I'm going to duplicate this one, and I'm going to say Likert scale items, group of items. And I'm gonna make this a child of the other one. And I'm gonna reset the position. And then I'm going to move it down and move left. I'm gonna remove this number. So this is the prompt, right? So the following qualities are important in my supervisor. This is the title. Now I have to have the items. No, not the items first. This is tricky. We can do this in many ways visually. Like I'm gonna do both. So let's see. First, uh, I'm going to put the labels of each item. So I'll duplicate this and believable. So, and I want to make this a child of the other one. Believable. I also need to have a number. So 1, believable. Right. So I'm going to duplicate these labels now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The next one is approachable. So the convention, the organization convention vary. If you're working individually, that's interesting. So you can do whatever makes sense for you. But if you are working in a group, which is more likely to happen, you need to see whatever will help better. The good thing about using this system of having two pieces, like a label for the game object and in between parentheses, you can use the type of that object, because when you drag things here into the inspector, you can see like the material. Which is the material? Currently it's empty, so none is the name of the material, none. But what type of object do you need to drag into this space? It's an object of the type material. For example, this text, we don't have any material, so if I try to drag here, it doesn't work. But if I add, like temporarily, in the believable text, I add a material or texture, texture or render. Where is that? Mesh renderer. So mesh renderer has a default material UI. So in this case now, the text believe is a game object that contains a mesh renderer or a material uh, component. So if I want to drag here the material of this text, now I can. I should. Why is it not working? Oh, there. Okay, okay. So let me change this here. I need to create a material in the project, but since we are not doing details like 3D, let's leave it be. So we can work with this in another opportunity. Let's go back to the focus. Believable, approachable. Oops, 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 oops. I change these numbers because they are ugly. All of them. So when you select mode objects, if you have a dash like this, it means that there are multiple values. And if you see the value when you have multiple objects selected, it means that all of them share the same value. I want these five to share the same position. So let's see, minus 415. Um, okay. Now I want only these to go down and these three to go down. These two to go down and this one to go down. I'm going to start changing the numbers. So the last quality is qualified. I'm going to remove these as well because I need to be organized, facilitate colleagues work in the future. Even ourselves, when we come back to a project, if something is disorganized, it's easy to get very frustrated or not productive. So qualified is number 5. Ouch. Wait, no, this is qualified. This one is successful. Third one is honest. Forgetting to change the number, so this is number 3. And successful is number 4. And the second one is approachable. Uh, Notice that all of the originals are in caps, so we can hold Shift and select all of them, and I can believe that it doesn't have it here. That's why Unity bought Text Mesh Pro, because we can change that. All right, so it's gonna be like this. I'm not gonna type everything again. I guess I'm gonna unbold them. Mhm. So these are the headers, like the labels for each item in the matrix of a Likert scale. Now I'm gonna put the Likert scale choices on. Ah, yeah, this is the thing that I said, that there are two ways of doing that. So this is Likert scale matrix one, type type one. So type one, I'm gonna copy this style here, which is the most used in our projects with like data collection, attitudinal data. That we have the check mark and the Likert scale item. Let's do that first. So since I don't want to be creating toggles again, I'm going to copy this thing here, these Likert scale toggles, duplicate, and insert under believable to be a child of believable. I'll reset the transform so it stays here. And now I'm going to move it to the right. Ta-da! No, here. Yeah. I'll have to have some kind of help here to show me. In each toggle, I need to now change to the correct label. The first label is extremely important. So if it is cutting like this, you can work with the overflow, vertical overflow, truncate, no, yeah, truncate, and horizontal overflow, warp. So extremely important. Terrible, terrible. Where's that? Maybe I'm going to put middle like this and like this. Okay. All of them have importance, so I'm totally going to copy this and paste it here, 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 and here. Second label, very important. I guess I'm also gonna copy the this style here. So since I change a lot of things, I'm going to copy the component. So click here, copy component, and I'll go to the new one and I'll paste component as values. Oh, the rect transform was not changed, so I did like this a little bit down. Very. Somewhat important. Ah, somewhat important. Paste component as values. Somewhat. Slightly important. Paste component as values. Slightly. Not at all. Not important at all. So this one is big. Not important I think you can hold Shift Enter to right below. Oops, no, hold Shift, not Shift, Control Enter. No, we can't. Can't we? No, we can't. Not here in text. So, okay, not important at all. Oh, I didn't paste the component value, so it's going to be warp, truncate, middle, a little down. This item is weird, but anyways. Alright, so this is the first type. What would I do now? I would totally communicate that this group of toggles belongs to the believable. This is just for the sake of organization. Because now I'm going to duplicate them and move down. Then duplicate again, move down. Can you see that I'm using the outline, the white outline from the parent of the text for me to guide where I'm putting the next one? For example, here, I have Likert scale toggle selected, but this text successful, the parent is telling me where it is, where the space of the parent is. So I can, the one that I'm selected is the group of toggles. So I can move down in the Y and have that white line to guide me, like kind of eyeballing where I would like that to be. All right, this is the first type of Likert scales, matrix Likert scales, visually speaking. I need to change here to approachable. Successful and qualified. Qualified. Save.